What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome to another video. It's currently 9 p.m. on Tuesday the 29th of August. This is actually quite an early upload for me. This is around the times that I used to be posting, and then it just got gradually got later and later. But yeah, so we finally had some kind of expansion in the markets today. DXY's expanded lower after a news release. I think it was around 10 o'clock. So we're going to look into that. And yeah, the fact that we've turned around at this point, the expansion lower, means that I can start finally hunting and looking for discount PD arrays. So what comes to my mind first is this, catches my eye, sorry, is this fair value gap resting here. I'm going to make that blue. And yeah, this is the only inefficiency I see on the weekly that we may be drawing to, which means that this range, this wick here, is likely to get traded over, and I'd like to see if we can trade down into here. So if we drop down to the daily, we can have a better look. You can see we've had a very big day. We traded up, taking out Monday's high, traded to the 50%, which is consequent encroachment of this wick. I'll just show you that now. 974. There we go. The high of the day was 991, and then the consequent encroachment was 974. So it's nice to see us trade to that. And then you can see ever since we've traded very aggressively down, gapping as well, gapping lower and trading towards these lows resting here, and obviously that weekly low there. So now I've got my eyes on this sell side liquidity, where resting below this swing low here. I can mark that out as sell side. And there's also this sell side liquidity resting below. This is Thursday's low as well. So I want to see if we can trade into that tomorrow. Now there is an implied fair value gap here. An implied fair value gap is when you get the midpoint of two wicks and you cross them over. I'll show you what I mean. And again, this is something that ICT hasn't spoken too much about, but I would like to see how Price treats it, because he's spoken about it before and he says that they exist. So it'll be nice to see if we can see some kind of retracement into the implied fair value gap. So what you do is you get the 50% level of both wicks, 103.566, 103.566, and then you draw it out, and that should create an implied fair value gap. So let's drop down to the 4 hour, and we should have a better look. So you can see we took out this low aggressively too, traded below it. Although we didn't take out this swing high here, this is still a break in market structure, so this would technically make it a a mitigation block if price is to return back to this low. So I do have my eyes set on that low. If I go to the daily, let's see. These should show on all interview. These should show on current interval and below. So let's drop to the 4 hour, and you can see that where that implied fair value gap rests, right where this low is as well. So we got a low, a high, and then we break lower. So I do have my eyes set on this area in general. I want to see if we can retrace back up into this, and that would give us the perfect opportunity for a short. So let's drop down to the 1 hour, and we can have an even deeper look. And you'll see how we traded up, took out all this buy side liquidity rested here, failed to take out that high, and then we traded lower. Now we do have a swing high here, so we do technically have a breaker, high, low, higher high, and from them we've now broken lower, which would mean that this low created here would then act as the breaker low, meaning that when price returns back to this swing low here, we could be looking for shorts. So I am going to keep my eye out on that. I'm going to make it blue, and I'm going to call it a breaker low, although I'm not sure if it counts as a breaker low, purely because of, again, the way it was structured in terms of this swing high. This swing high isn't you can see that swing high isn't very relevant on the isn't very relevant on the 4 hour or the daily, so I'm not sure on how effective that's going to be. However, like I said, when I see price return back into here, I want to see if we can get a turnaround. So what I am going to do, I'm going to get rid of that implied fair value gap. I just wanted to show you guys what that would be and how it forms, and I'm just going to keep this breaker low drawn out as a potential draw for buy side tomorrow or in following days, sorry, and then this will be a perfect opportunity to be selling from. So if we drop down to the 15-minute, you can see we've just traded through, bounced off this level, this low here, had a run on stops, continued lower, and we've just been digging lower since. So it's possible that we might take out this sell side liquidity If that's the case, then I would start looking for buy side, which would then make me want to see this breaker low. So what I'm saying is that once we take out this sell side liquidity, that at that point I do want to start looking to see if we can trade back to this breaker low. So this level is what I have my eyes on set on once this sell side liquidity gets tagged, and then I'd like to see if we can run down into this sell side liquidity and take out that in that weekly fair value gap that I've drawn out. So yeah, it's like I said, it's nice to finally have some expansion. You can see we gapped here as well. It's showing a very bearish nature. And yeah, hopefully we can have some more fun in the week, because like I said, Monday was pretty dead, very consolidated. Tuesday we finally had the expansion move. So now I feel like Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, especially with all the news releases and things, we should have a pretty smooth sailing week in terms of being able to follow liquidity and get a few trades in. So I'm going to go to GBP USD. Let me just clear my charts. I'm going to go on the weekly as well. And I'm going to work away from here. Now, GBP hasn't moved as strongly higher as dollar has, but it's very important to see how we've taken out this low, and do we see any premium PD arrays that we may trade to on the weekly? Well, there's not really any here. We have these highs up here and here, but right now it does seem like pound is struggling in terms of making its way higher, and you'll see what I mean when I compare it to euro. But we do have this swing low, high, low, higher, high, and a break. So this swing low, although it looks weird, this is technically a breaker. So I do want to see if price can trade to that. So if we drop down to the 4 hour, we can have a better look. Have we tagged this high yet? We haven't actually taken out this high, but we do have a nice 4 hour fair value gap, which I'm anticipating price to want to trade into. Once it trades into that, then I'll see if it can find support on this high and then trade through. So let me say that again. We have this swing low from last week. Once price trades to that, I'd like to see it bounce back, come to this swing high created here, and then I'd like to see if this buy side liquidity can get ran, because these are all this high, and this high are all relative equal highs. So there's some nice buy side liquidity resting above here that I'd like to see get attacked. This is sell side, so I'm going to just, and this sell side liquidity has already been tagged. So what I like to do sometimes is when I want to remind myself is I just grey out the sell side liquidity that's been tagged. So this has already been tagged, which is why now I'm expecting expansion higher. And again, we have a breaker here, low, high, low, low. So as soon as this high gets taken out properly, then I'd want to see a return back to this breaker for us to then expand higher. So let's drop down to the 1 hour so we can actually get the breaker block itself. I believe it's going to be these two blocks that make the order block, and we can expand that out, although it might be the wick as a whole. So it's going to be interesting to see how deep pound retraces. So just for safety, I am going to just draw the whole. I am going to draw from here and make this the breaker high, because that is the high of the breaker. So once price returns back into this range, low, high, lower, low. So once price returns back into this range, we can be looking for buys on pound. So let me make this breaker high. But we haven't even broke through it yet. So that's why we have to be a little bit cautious, and we have to wait for price to give us that signal and show us that it wants to be doing what we're expecting. So like I said, hopefully we can expand higher, trade into this, and then once we pull back, it'll be nice to see if we can trade back into this breaker high. Now this wick as a whole, I do believe is going to be a place for where price is going to want to, I believe this is where the breaker is going to form. So if we drop to the 5 minute, it is like, because of how quick the price action was, I'm not sure if there's actually, so there's not, it's quite, messy price action, but this area in general, this wick on the 4 hour is where I've got my eyes set in terms of looking for buys. So yeah, that's pretty much pound right now. All I'm saying is I'm expecting us to trade into this fair value gap resting above here, and then I'd like to see us retrace, and that's where, and then I'd want to be buying from here, and to keep an eye on this breaker. Again, low, high, lower, low, break higher. Once it comes back here, we can start looking for a run into these highs here, and eventually it's buy side liquidity and a fair value gap resting up there. Let's go into the daily, see if we can see any fair value resting up above there. So we have all these relative equal highs, and this relative equal high is positioned nicely with this fair value gap on the daily. So there is reason for price to want to draw up there, so we can draw that out as a draw on liquidity. So that was nice to see. And then finally we'll go on to euro. It's so nice to have honestly, it's so nice to see a break in market structure, guys. So again, similar with euro, we can see we'll start with the weekly. Now that we've had an expansion, what can we keep our eyes out on? Well, we got this swing high here and this swing high here. So price is likely going to want to draw into these. But if we drop to the daily, again, now that we've had the expansion, we want to look for the breaker because that's where we want to be entering. So we got a low, a high, a lower low, and we've broken through that high now, which means that this candle should act as a breaker block. But we'll drop down to the 4 hour and we should be able to have a better look at that. But first, let me draw out the breaker high and breaker low first. So that's the high, low, high, low, low break. So it's that within that projection, and this is the order block that creates the high. So this is the last up close before the breakdown, before the break higher, if that makes sense. Which means that this candle specifically is what I'm going to have my eyes set on for retracement on euro for me to be looking for buys. So I'm going to make that the breaker. Anticipate price want to come back down. There is technically this swing high as well, because although this low is 7660, this is 7661. So this one is lower than this low. So this low did get taken here, making this a breaker, low, high, lower low. And that's quite interesting because that would then make this swing high the breaker. In fact, we should take that into consideration. So let's jump back up to the hourly and have a better look at this. We have a low, which is, let me just make sure, 661. This is 660, so this one's higher. So we can draw this out as a breaker high. So it's possible price won't even be that won't even act as the breaker. It's potential that there's potential for this to be the breaker. So I'm going to put breaker high. Hope this makes sense, guys. I know I seem like I'm all over the place right now. But because we saw this low get taken here, this was the last. Let's make sure. Did it tag it? It tagged it by 1 pip there. You can just see it, but that did take out that low, meaning that this swing high is the breaker. Low, high, lower, low. And because of that, that's where I'd want to see price trace to. Obviously, there's a fair value gap here as well. And then we can mark out the 50% level of that, which you can see is getting if price does return to it, it should respect that 50% level. So we can make that red like so. So as soon as price again comes back down into here, it will offer us a discount where we can be buying, and then I'd be looking for runs into the buy side liquidity resting up here and even potentially up to here. So let's go back up to the daily and see if we can see where price might likely want to draw to. I see a nice fair value gap up here in efficiency. Remember, price runs to either highs, old relative equal highs, or inefficiencies. That's what price is trading to. So this is an inefficiency resting up here, so there's a potential for price to want to run into this buy side liquidity as its first target. But obviously we've just taken out this high already, so again, seeing a retracement back to this breaker high would not be surprising to me at all. But I am going to be curious to see how it treats this candle, and if we do manage to dip all the way down back to this swing high. So yeah, that's pretty much everything, guys. Again, really lovely to see some price action, like some actual, expansion. Again, we're coming to the end of August. We have a lot of news releases this week, so this is quite exciting, so to speak. We also have an inversion fair value gap here. Why? Because it's delivered on the downside, and then the upside, meaning that when price does come down here, we want to see this act as support. Now, price can wick down there, but overall, I want to see if this can continue to show support. So that's going to be interesting to see. And then obviously we've got this fair value gap that still hasn't been filled yet. So there's a lot to keep our eyes out for. But overall, I'm bullish now on euro, bullish on GBP in terms of staying within this range and then using that to expand higher. And then DXY as well. I'd like to start to see run into the sell side liquidity. But first, obviously, I'm anticipating some kind of retracement back to the breaker, or mitigation block, so to speak, before we continue to move. But yeah, that's everything, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been GBP Baby, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.